Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Caregiver Breathing Circle. My name is Sabrina. I will be your mindfulness instructor throughout this session and any of the continuing sessions of the Breathing Circle. So if you're new here, welcome. The intention behind these sessions is to help you carve out some time for yourself. As you may already know, being a caregiver is challenging and rewarding work. But it takes a lot of work to prioritize yourself when you are so busy being pulled into multiple directions and being needed by so many different people. So I would like to honor you in this moment, and I extend that to you, and I hope that you can honor yourself for prioritizing and carving out the time to be still, to be here, and to be doing something for yourself. Because I promise you, how you show up here will continue to show up for you in your life as you pour your cup into others. So to give you a quick rundown of what to expect from this session and any of the following sessions to come, they are standalone, which means if you're watching this one for the first time, that's completely okay. There's no other session that you need to watch to catch up. You are in the right place at the right time. And these sessions will be recorded and put onto YouTube so that you can practice this, continue to practice mindfulness or tune back into these intentions and do so at your own pace and in your own time. I will divide these sessions into 3 parts. The first part is setting intention, and we'll get started in that in a moment. And that looks like grounding into the body and tuning into the here and now. Oftentimes we have a lot of mental tabs open. We may be busy doing something right before this and have a lot of things going on in our mind. So the intention setting is a wonderful opportunity to cultivate calmness and stillness in our body so that we can try and close some of those mental tabs and be present with whatever the topic is today. And also, whatever you're feeling today, that's very important to always bring with you. Come as you are. It is always the perfect curriculum. And after the intention setting, we'll move on to a quick dharma talk where I'll be sharing a passage from a book or a quote that really moved me, and I'll be explaining a little bit more of how that ties into our intention, and finally how that ties into our third piece, which is the mindfulness practice. So if you've never meditated before, that's totally okay. This is very beginner friendly with some pockets of silence to help you reflect and contemplate. But for the most part, I will be your guide inward to your inner world. And today's topic is on emotions and how they may show up in the mind and the body. Before we begin with our intention setting, I've got my bowl here, and I'm going to hit this sound bowl just a few times, and I welcome you to relax, to allow yourself to listen to the sound until you can't hear it anymore. And this can be our very first mindfulness practice to settle in, to try and not so much cancel out what's going on around us, but more specifically tune into what's going on within us. So let's get started. Wonderful. So before going into the intention setting, I would just like to say once more, come as you are. It is always the perfect curriculum to be working with. There's often this misconception that mindfulness is to clear the mind, or it's only for people who are already calm and who don't have stress in their life. And really, mindfulness and mindfulness meditation are for everyone. It is kind of like a universal ice cream flavor that really helps you cultivate inner peace. And if you can't even get that far, if you are not able to find peace in your mind, find peace in your body, as odd as it sounds, you may be able to find peace with that circumstance, with the fact that peace is hard to attain. The purpose of mindfulness is to help you become aware of what is, help you accept what is, and help you be with it. And I'm honored to be your guide today. So, especially today, if you have some difficult emotions, if you have some challenging feelings present within you, that is the perfect opportunity to practice mindfulness today. And I'll be guiding you through all of that. However, if you happen to not feel stressed today, if you happen to feel really great and positive and happy, it's still the perfect curriculum to practice mindfulness, because we're going to become aware of these emotions. We're going to become aware of how they impact our mind, the direction they may be taking our thoughts, how emotions are showing up in our body, and our relationship with them, the ones that we deem good, the ones that we deem bad, and the ones that maybe we don't think are that important because they don't have an intense pull. All of them are welcome today. So let's set our intentions. An intention is an anchor to ground into. If you don't want to use a word or a phrase or an affirmation, that's perfectly okay. I invite you to use the breath. The breath is the absolute best intention that you can anchor yourself into for two reasons. Number one, you have breath flowing through your body. There is an immense amount of gratitude and wisdom being held in your breath. It's keeping you alive. And although watching your inhale and exhale may get a little boring, no breath cycle is the same. And a breath cycle is in through the nose and out through the mouth, or out through the nose. But really it's an inhale and an exhale. It's an inhale and a slight space in between before the exhale, and another pause in between before starting that cycle. And number two, it's the perfect anchor because it is always in the present moment. As caregivers, you probably know that your mind can be in one place and your body can be here. And sometimes it's opposite. Maybe your mind is here, but it feels like your body is disconnected and somewhere else. When we begin to pay attention with a mindful awareness, with curiosity and with openness, we can recognize that sometimes our mind and our body are not in alignment, but the breath is always in the present moment. And our mind we can use to focus, and our body is the vehicle for the breath. So not only is it a present moment practice, and not only is it a blessing filled with wisdom, but it's also helping your mind and body ground into the now. So I will offer an intention, I will offer an affirmation for you to use and ground, not just throughout this session, but take with you throughout the week, throughout the month. If it works for you, I really encourage you to stick with it. But if it doesn't work for you, you always have the breath to come back to. So before I begin and share my intention with you, I'd like to share an opening quote. If we become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations that are provoked by stressful events, we can loosen ourselves from automatic ways of responding and choose to respond more consciously. I want to remind you that you have the power to choose how you respond to life. Stress is natural, but living in a stressful state shouldn't be. And hopefully today, throughout some of this talk, our intention setting, and even our actual practice towards the end, I hope that you can take some with you. I hope you can take some of that wisdom. I hope you can take some of my experiences and my teachings and apply it to your own personal experiences. And remind yourself that you absolutely always have a choice in how you respond, and not just to the world around you, which is a very big part of your job, but also the world within you, your emotions, your thoughts, and the ways that they're showing up in your body. So today's intention I've set for us is, I notice sensations in my body, and I welcome my emotions with compassion. You could take your hands and place them over your heart if you'd like. And you can really let that sink in for you. Allow that to be your truth, even if just for the next 30 minutes. I notice sensations in my body, and I welcome emotion with compassion. By choosing compassion, we are going to be kinder to ourselves, extend a little grace where maybe we would normally have a shorter fuse. By choosing compassion, we may notice the expectations that are unrealistic and mountains high, but that we tend to set for ourselves, and often. By choosing compassion, by choosing to notice and accept and allow our emotions to flow with compassion, we slowly take away the judgment that we so easily pour on ourselves. And we can look at ourselves through the lens of non-judgment. And you really may see a whole new world for yourself. So that is the intention that we're setting for this session. And that's something that I will invite you to come back to when we begin to practice our mindfulness meditation at the end. Now, I would like to share with you a passage from a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. This is by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And he's often referred to as the father of mindfulness, at least in the United States. And in our civilization, we are really beginning to understand the importance of mindfulness. And in the same breath, it's still kind of a woo-woo word. It's still kind of one of those things where we're not entirely sure if it's for us, if it's a cult, if it's something that we have to adopt as a religion. And so this passage not only truthfully ties right into our emotions and what we'll be diving into and experiencing today, but it also gives a brief, quick description and hopefully an easier understanding of what mindfulness really is and how you can apply it. So the name of this passage is "You Can't Stop the Waves, but You Can Learn to Surf." One way to envision how mindfulness works is to think of your mind as the surface of a lake or of the ocean. There are always waves on the water. Sometimes they are big, sometimes they are small, and sometimes they are almost imperceptible. The water's waves are churned up by winds, which come and go and vary in direction and intensity, just as do the winds of stress and change in our lives, which also stir up waves in our minds. People who don't understand meditation think that it is some kind of special inner manipulation which will magically shut off these waves so that the mind's surface will be flat, peaceful, and tranquil. But just as you can't put a glass plate on the water to calm the waves, so you can't artificially suppress the waves of your mind, and it is not too smart to try. It will only create more tension and inner struggle, not calmness. That doesn't mean that calmness is unattainable. It's just that it cannot be attained by misguided attempts to suppress the mind's natural activity. It is possible through meditation to find shelter from much of the wind that agitates the mind. Over time, a good deal of the turbulence may die down from lack of continuous feeding. But ultimately, the winds of life and of the mind will blow, do what we may. Meditation is about knowing something about this and how to work with it. I truly wanted to just read that one last sentence to you, but I know that I needed to read the entire passage to truly encapsulate the importance of mindfulness and just how relatable it is to every single one of us, because we all have emotions. And as a former caregiver of one of my parents, I would argue that caregivers have to go through a range of emotions for themselves and then for the people that they care for. So I want to read that one line one last time for you. Meditation is about knowing something about this and how to work with it. Emotions are like waves, and we are the ocean. But oftentimes we forget that we're the ocean and we get caught up in a wave. And if you've ever physically been caught up in a wave, it's very scary. And if you're not careful, it can actually fill your body. It could fill your lungs with water. And I would argue that maybe that's how intense emotions feel, like we're drowning from the inside. And I'd like to offer a piece of guidance for you. Remember, you are the ocean, and you have the capacity to learn to surf those waves, not to identify with them, not to resist them, not to try and change the way that they show up or even the way that they make you feel. I believe that our life is the perfect curriculum to learn and grow from our discomforts, our challenges, our obstacles. And sometimes our biggest obstacle is ourself. Not that we choose to get stuck in these emotions, but they can feel so heavy and they can feel like they're filling us up from the inside and it begins pouring out. And as caregivers, you also understand that when you don't take care of yourself, it shows when you begin to try and take care of other people. That old adage that you can't pour from an empty cup, as cliche and maybe annoying as it may be for you to hear, it's very, very true. And so when we tend to our emotions, we're able to not only begin to see our choices and our responsibility and how it got so turbulent, but we're also able to empathize and recognize that turbulence in others, because we are all emotional creatures. We all have these waves of emotion coming over us, and sometimes they feel really happy and joyous. But even those we can quickly attach expectations to and allow them to consume us. It may feel good, but it doesn't always necessarily lead us where we need to be. And then there's the emotions that don't always feel that good. And we're trying to push them away and resist them. And we're trying to change the way that they make us feel or deny that we even feel them. But that too has its consequences. Because if we're constantly chasing the good and pushing away the bad, we're not seeing that maybe that bad stuff has some good lessons to offer. And maybe that good stuff is best in moderation. Emotions are tough because we tend to zoom into the details of it, the he said, she said. We tend to really focus in on the what and the how, rather than the emotion itself, rather than feeling the emotion. So, my offering to you today is to recognize how emotions show up for you in the body. Later, you can move on to the mind, but sometimes the mind is a tricky place, and it's kind of like scrolling social media. We'll go into our mind to think one thing, but we'll be taken off into something else and mindlessly scrolling. And it's tough. It's tough if we're not mentally disciplined. And even if we are, the nature of the mind, as John Kabat-Zinn wrote, is to wander. The nature of the mind is to be busy and to look for things to think about, to focus on, to analyze. And so it's not about changing the nature of the mind, but rather witnessing it so that we can recognize the little pockets of opportunity we have to make a different choice, to throw a monkey wrench in the plan, in the natural cycle of the mind, thinking. When we notice it, when we take a moment and sit back and observe it, we can see the patterns, and we can also see our responsibility in them and how we may be feeding them. So I suggest to all of my students of mindfulness, tune into the body. When you're feeling an intense emotion, so is your body. If you're angry, notice how that shows up for you. If you're happy, notice how that shows up for you. It's important not to discriminate against the happy ones and the not so good feeling emotions. There is no such thing as a good or bad emotion, only what we label it. So notice how it shows up in your body. For anxiety, maybe your chest gets tight, maybe you clench your fists, maybe you feel tears of frustration come up, maybe your throat closes. For happiness, maybe your shoulders drop and you smile. Maybe you're open and your energy is curious and allowing of things. Begin to practice noticing, observation, because emotions are just energy in motion. So notice how that energy fluctuates in your body. All right. Now let's go ahead and move on to our mindfulness practice. Today's practice, we are going to be tuning in to our body. We're going to practice awareness of emotion in the form of bodily sensations. And as I guide you through this, I will remind you that emotions are not innately good or bad. That is only how we label them. Comfortable or uncomfortable to feel, to realize, to experience, to be with. But today I ask you to remove that judgment. Try to remove the label of good and bad. And maybe just recognize it as comfortable or uncomfortable, pleasurable or unpleasant, and allow them to flow. Instead of gripping onto what feels good and pushing away what doesn't, allow it all to flow through your body. So as I ring this bell, I want you to slowly begin to settle into your seat. Feet flat on the ground or in a cross-legged position, or even if you're laying down. Make sure you're comfortable. Your back is straight, but not too rigid. Your shoulders are relaxed, away from your ears. And if you're lying down, palms facing up if that's comfortable for you. And if you're seated, you can place your palms on your lap or facing up toward the ceiling. And with each sound of the bell, use your inhale to receive and use your exhale to release, ultimately bringing you to the present moment. A gentle reminder that today's intention is I notice sensations in my body and welcome emotions with compassion. I notice sensations in my body and welcome emotions with compassion. As you become settled in your seat, the ground beneath you, take a moment to notice the contact points between your chair, your cushion, or maybe a mat. Notice the points of your body that are completely supported. Gently invite your body to release any clenching or tension, any muscles working extra hard to hold you up. With grace and compassion, gently let go and trust that gravity and the chair beneath you are fully supporting you. It's okay to relax. It's okay to let go. And you can extend that to your mind's eye. It's okay to relax into this moment. It's safe to pause your thinking for another time. It's okay to release mental tension and to let go of thoughts, anticipations, ruminations, or worries. You are safe here. And this moment is dedicated to being here, being present, and being with the emotions that arise within you. In a moment, I'm going to instruct you to bring forth an emotion. But first, I invite you to take this sense of calm, groundedness with you. The mind is powerful and can make us believe that something is happening all over again, even when we are here in the now, recalling a past event. So at any moment, remind yourself of today's intention. Remind yourself that the breath is always waiting for you in the present moment. I invite you to recall an emotional event that happened in the last week or so for you. Although this is a safe space, try not to bring up anything that's too intense for you. Something that was challenging, but not completely overwhelming. In this case, I invite you to recall an unpleasant emotion that arose within you. Give yourself a moment to recount the details, the people and environments involved. Whatever helps you clearly remember this emotion. And now invite those details to drift away. Allow yourself to let go of the grip you hold on so tightly to, the people and places that hurt you, that angered you, that upset you, until you are only left with the emotion. Can you observe how this emotion shows up in your body? Can you locate it in a specific area, muscle, joint? And finally, can you extend compassion to all of the places that you are experiencing this emotion? Whether it's your heart beating faster or your muscles tightening. Send it all compassion. And if it's challenging for you to visualize sending compassion to a part of your body or a memory of your emotion, then I invite you to do so with your breathing. On the inhale, allow yourself to feel. And on the exhale, send that feeling compassion. Inhale, allow your feeling. Exhale, send it compassion. Inhale, allow. Exhale, compassion. And even though you are recalling an event that has already happened, by choosing to embody compassion, you are creating real life change in the way that you experience this emotion. Continue to let go of your thoughts and judgments and labels about this circumstance until you are only left with allowing and compassion. In a moment, I will ring the bell to put a close to this practice and bring you back into the present moment. I encourage you to hold on to this feeling. Hold on to this intention, this practice of allowing compassion. And take it with you throughout the rest of your day, week, month, as long as you can keep it with you. Gently and in your own time, start doing small movements in your body, your toes and your fingertips, that bring you back into the present moment until you are ready to open your eyes and come back into the room. This has been a very powerful practice, and if you've made it all the way through, congratulate yourself. It's not always easy to revisit the tough stuff, and it's definitely not easy to sit with it. So I honor you for showing up today, for carving out the time to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being, and for adding drops in a bucket that help you grow and thrive, not only as the person that you are, but as the caregiver that you offer the world. So until next time, I thank you, and I want to remind you that peace is always one choice away. Namaste. Have a wonderful day.